Welcome back to my series on understanding high masking autism and complex PTSD. I'm going to share with you one of the resources I found within the autistic community that has been used historically to describe a profile of what used to be called Asperger's. Although some still like the term Aspies, it is generally not used because of its historical and disturbing nature in terms of the person who was Hans Asperger. You can Google that. And those who also might say this list is too generalized, but the idea is to create and paint a picture of a profile of what autism might look like, particularly here in females, although this profile can apply to anyone. The reason why I want to share this is that, first of all, there's not enough research, peer-reviewed research on people of color and women at all to get anywhere close to fully understanding what this might look like, especially in those who have learned to be highly masked or who are unconsciously masking. This list is meant to sort of like increase awareness. It is not meant to be a diagnostic tool, but to sort of be a springboard for more deep diving on what may be autism if that applies to you, to increase discussions and to enhance what I really want people to get is how different it can look than what we thought it looked like and still looks like in terms of what the DSM describes. It doesn't deny the DSM that there are those who fit that profile. The problem is the DSM-5 at the current dynamic leaves out a whole lot of space for what we're learning about autism. So what I want you to understand is that this profile to me explains, and I've seen a lot of people online talk about being diagnosed autistic, and people will say in the comments, you can't be autistic, you don't look autistic. That's the problem. That you don't look autistic has been based on something that does not reflect anywhere near the full community. Once again, especially in females and people of color. So this list is not a diagnostic tool at all, but it is meant to be a springboard for more understanding and knowledge and awareness. Section A, there's actually Section A through Section J and an optional section as well. I'm going to put cards behind me because there's a lot on these lists. I will also link the website down below. Section A, deep thinkers. A deep thinker, a prolific writer or artist drawn to poetry or art. Highly intelligent. Remember that highly intelligent does not relate to IQ levels. Autistic individuals are often dyslexic and have dysgraphia and other learning disabilities, but can be highly intelligent about particular subject matters, out-of-the-box thinking, and verbal fluency, fluid intelligence capacities. Sees things at multiple levels, including her own processes. Analyzes existence, the meaning of life, and everything continually. Serious and matter-of-fact in nature. Doesn't take things for granted. Doesn't simplify. Everything is complex. Often gets lost in own thoughts and checks out, blank stare. Section B, innocent, naive, honest. Experiences trouble with lying. Finds it difficult to understand manipulation and disloyalty. Finds it difficult to understand vindictive behavior and retaliation. Easily fooled and conned. Feelings of confusion and being overwhelmed. Feelings of being misplaced and or from another planet, like an alien. Feelings of isolation. Abused or taken advantage of as a child but didn't think to tell anyone. Section C, escape and friendship. Survives overwhelming emotions and senses by escaping in thought or action. Escapes regularly through fixations, obsessions, and over-interest in subjects. Escapes routinely through imagination, fantasy, and daydreaming. Escapes through the rhythm of words. Philosophizes continually. Had imaginary friends in youth. Imitates people on TV or in movies. Treated friends as pawns in youth. For example, friends were students, consumers, members. Makes friends with older or younger females more so than friends her own age, often in young adulthood. Imitates friends or peers in style, dress, attitude, interests, and manner, sometimes speech. Obsessively collects and organizes objects. Mastered imitation. Escapes by playing the same music over and over again, and I would add, or the same movies. Escapes through a relationship, imagined or real. Numbers bring ease. Could be numbers associated with patterns, calculations, lists, time, and/or personification. Escapes through counting, categorizing, organizing, or rearranging. Escapes into other rooms at parties. Cannot relax or rest without many thoughts. Everything has a purpose. Section D, comorbid attributes. These are things that often co-occur with this dynamic. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Sensory issues, sight, sound, texture, smells, taste. Might have synesthesia. Generalized anxiety. Sense of pending danger or doom. Feelings of polar opposites of extremes, depressed, overjoyed, inconsiderate, overly sensitive. Poor muscle tone, double jointed and/or in coordination and/or lack in coordination. May have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and/or hypotonia or POTS syndrome. Eating disorders, food obsessions, and/or worry about what is eaten. Irritable bowel or intestinal issues. Chronic fatigue or immune challenges. Misdiagnosed or diagnosed with a mental illness. Experiences multiple physical symptoms, perhaps labeled hypochondriac. Questions place in the world, often drops small objects. Wonders who she is and what is expected of her. Searches for right and wrong. Since puberty has had bouts of depression, may have PMDD. Flicks, rubs fingernails, picks scalp or skin, flaps hands, rubs hands together, tucks hands under or between legs, keeps fists closed, paces in circles, and/or clears throat often. Social interaction. Friends have ended friendships suddenly without her understanding why, and/or has had a difficult time making and keeping friends. Tendency to overshare. Spills intimate details to strangers. Raised hand too much in class or didn't raise it at all. Little impulse control when speaking, younger. Monopolizes conversation at times. Brings subject back to self. Comes across at times as narcissistic and controlling. Is not narcissistic. Shares in order to reach out. Often sounds eager and overzealous or apathetic and disinterested. Holds a lot of thoughts, ideas, and feelings inside. Feels as if she is attempting to communicate correctly. Obsesses about the potentiality of a relationship with someone, particularly a love interest or feasible new friendship. Confused by the rules of accurate eye contact, tone of voice, proximity of body, body stance, and posture in conversation. Conversations are often exhausting. Questions the actions and behaviors of self and others continually. Feels as if missing a conversation gene or thought filter. Trained self in social interactions through readings and studying other people. Visualizes and practices how she will act around others. Practices, rehearses in their mind what she will say to another before entering the room. Difficulty filtering out background noise when talking to others. Has a continuous dialogue in mind that tells her what to say and how to act when in a social situation. Sense of humor sometimes quirky, odd, inappropriate, or different from others. As a child, it was hard to know when it was her turn to talk. Finds the norms of conversation confusing. Finds unwritten and unspoken rules difficult to grasp, remember, and apply. Section F, finds refuge when alone. Feels extreme relief when she does not have to go anywhere, talk to anyone, answer calls, or leave the house. At the same time, will often harbor guilt for hibernating and not doing what everyone else is doing. One visitor at a time at the home may be perceived as a threat. This can even be a familiar family member. Knowing logically a house visitor is not a threat doesn't relieve the anxiety. Feelings of dread about upcoming events and appointments in the calendar. Knowing she has to leave the house causes anxiety from the moment she wakes up. All the steps involved in leaving the house are overwhelming and exhausting to think about. She prepares herself mentally for outings, excursions, meetings, and appointments, often days before a scheduled event. OCD tendencies when it comes to concepts of time, being on time, tracking time, recording time, and managing time. Could be carried over to money as well. Questions next steps and movements continually. Sometimes feels as if she is on a stage being watched and/or having a sense of always having to act out the right steps, even when she's at home alone. Telling self the right words and or positive self-talk, like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, doesn't typically alleviate anxiety. CBT may actually cause increased feelings of inadequacy. Knowing she is staying home all day brings great peace of mind. Requires a large amount of downtime or alone time. Feels guilty after spending a lot of time on a special interest. Uncomfortable in public locker rooms, bathrooms, and or dressing rooms. Dislikes being in a crowded mall, crowded gym, and or crowded theater. Section G, sensitive. Sensitive to sounds, textures, temperature, and or smells when trying to sleep. Adjust bedclothes, bedding, and or environment to attempt to find comfort. Dreams are anxiety-ridden, vivid, complex, and or precognitive in nature. Highly intuitive to others' feelings. Highly empathetic, sometimes to the point of confusion. Takes criticism to heart. Longs to be seen, heard, and understood. Questions if she is a normal person. Highly susceptible to outside viewpoints and opinions. At times adapts her life or view or actions based on others' words or actions or opinions. Recognizes own limitations in many areas daily, if not hourly. Becomes hurt when others question or doubt her work. Views many things as an extension of the self. Fears others' opinions, criticism, and judgment. Dislikes words and events that hurt animals and people. Collects or rescues animals, often in childhood. Huge compassion for suffering, sometimes for inanimate objects, personification. Sensitive to substances, environmental toxins, foods, alcohol, medication, hormones, etc. Tries to help, offers unsolicited advice, or formalizes plans of action. Questions life purpose and how to be a better person. Seeks to understand abilities, skills, and or gifts. Section H, sense of self. Feels trapped in wanting to be herself and wanting to fit in. Imitates others without realizing it. Suppresses true wishes, often in young adulthood. Exhibits codependent behaviors, often in young adulthood. Adapts self in order to avoid ridicule. Rejects social norms and or questions social norms. Feelings of extreme isolation. Feeling good about the self takes a lot of effort and work. Switches preferences based on environment and other people. Didn't care about her hygiene, clothes, and appearance before the teenage years, and or before someone else pointed those out to her. I would argue also they can be the opposite, go too far the other way. Freaks out but doesn't know why until later. Younger sounding voice. Trouble recognizing what she looks like and or has occurrences of slight prosopagnosia, difficulty recognizing or remembering faces. Feels significantly younger on the inside than on the outside. Feels perpetually 12 inside. Section I, confusion. Had a hard time learning that others are not always honest. Feelings seem confusing, illogical, and unpredictable. Confuses appointments, numbers, and or dates. Expects that by acting a certain way, certain results can be achieved, but realizes in dealing with emotions that those results don't always manifest. Spoke frankly and literally in youth. Jokes go over the head. Confused when others ostracize, shun, belittle, trick, and betray. Trouble with emotions of hate and dislike. Feels sorry for someone who has persecuted or hurt her. Personal feelings of anger, outrage, deep love, fear, giddiness, and anticipation seem to be easier to identify with than emotions of joy, satisfaction, calmness, and serenity. Difficulty recognizing how extreme emotions, outrage, and deep love will affect her, and challenges transferring what has been learned about emotions from one situation to the next. Situations and conversations sometimes get perceived as black or white. The middle spectrum of outcomes, events, and emotions is sometimes overlooked or misunderstood, an all or nothing mentality, so the middle ground is like, doesn't get read well. A small fight might signal the end of a relationship or collapse of the world. A small compliment might boost her into a state of bliss. Section J, words, numbers, and patterns. Likes to know word origins and or origin of historical facts, root cause, and foundation. Confused when there is more than one meaning or spelling to a word. High interest in song and song lyrics. notices patterns frequently, remembers things in visual pictures, remembers exact details about someone's life, has a remarkable memory for certain details, writes or creates to relieve anxiety, has certain feelings or emotions towards words and or numbers. Words and or numbers bring a sense of comfort and peace, akin to a friendship. And the optional section is executive functioning and motor skills. This area isn't always as evident as other areas. Simple tasks can cause extreme hardship. Learning to drive a car or round the corner in a hallway can be troublesome. New places often offer their own set of challenges. Anything that requires a reasonable amount of steps, dexterity, or know-how can rouse a sense of panic. The thought of repairing, fixing, or locating something can cause anxiety. Mundane tasks are avoided. Cleaning the self and home may seem insurmountable. Many questions come to mind when setting about to do a task. Might leave the house with mismatched socks, shirt unbuttoned correctly, and or have dyslexia and or dysgraphia. A trip to the grocery store can be overwhelming. Trouble copying dance steps, aerobic moves, or directions in a sports gym class. Has a hard time finding certain objects in the house, but remembers with exact clarity where other objects are. Not being able to locate something or thinking about locating something can cause feelings of intense anxiety, object permanence challenges, even with something as simple as opening an envelope. So what it says here is that this unofficial list can be copied for those in like the counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, as long as we provide Samantha Craft's information, which I will of course do. And this is what she says. This is one person's opinion. It is not meant to replace the DSM-5 autism spectrum definition, nor is this list meant to serve as an official diagnostic tool. Thousands and thousands of individuals around the globe have used this list in conjunction with the DSM-4 or 5 and a professional's guidance. It has been an important tool for females, particularly, but anyone across the gender spectrum can identify with the list. It has been translated into multiple languages. It is based on years of work, and it is not all-inclusive. And so basically, some will finally align with this, and they will not be autistic, and some will. It truly is meant for a springboard for discussion. And the reason why I wanted to share this so much is that this is an example of what I'm finding in lots of places around how autism might present in higher masking and consciously masking individuals. And that even this idea that this could be, let's just say in a small percentage, does that align with what you thought autism looked like if you are a clinician or have no understanding or exposure to this whole new part of autism? Because I did not know that. I had no idea. I started watching it on TikTok and learning more from those in the field, and being asked about complex trauma and looking at my own life, my patients and my kids and my family, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this really deserves more inquiry. So I am not sitting up here saying, if you have all these things, you are autistic. I am not saying that at all. But we have to broaden the understanding of the spectrum, because the spectrum is a spectrum that has not been fully acknowledged and understood, and I believe is still at the beginning of being understood. And it's life-changing, because even if you say, I don't need an official diagnosis, but I know I have all these things, and my life has been working in a way that is not working for me, or set up in a way that's not working, something needs to change. So, I know it was a long video, it was a lot of reading, and I wouldn't blame you if you just clicked over to the website, probably easier to read, but I wanted to put it online in case you were like driving or listening to it in your car or whatever, and you didn't want to access the list. So, thank you to Samantha Craft, thank you to you for being here. Please stay safe and well, and I'll see you soon.